in your opinion, how does investing into social problems as a president is putting all that money actually benefits with long-term outcome? How does it benefit? And in my opinion, it's almost like being the casino, to where the people that you're trying to help socially with the social programs are the person gambling. It's the person gambling where the house always wins, but you're always losing. You're the gambler that always loses. So it's like the government's the big casino that's investing all this money into the social problems. I look at the social people that you're dealing with, the social problems or the social issues you're trying to fix, are basically people that just gamble. It's a lose-lose. There's no win.
And now, Verbal Artwork Podcast with Mr. Rembrandt.
All right, I'm Mr. Rembrandt, and I'm here with Raw Wilkes. This is another episode of Verbal Artwork with Mr. Rembrandt. Verbal conversation is artwork. The way you say it, the information that you provide can all be aesthetic, can all be artwork, can all be beneficial. And again, I'm here with Raw Wilkes for another episode. Make sure that you go to wherever you get your podcast from, with Spotify or Apple, the Apple Store. Make sure you search Mr. Rembrandt and download the episodes of Verbal Artwork with Mr. Rembrandt. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button for the Mr. Rembrandt channel. And you could follow me on Instagram at Mr. Rembrandt, no space, and or at Twitter. You can follow me at AR Rembrandt on Twitter. And you can also become a subscriber for a few bucks. Get all of the podcast episodes early and ad-free. And you can also get bonus features like episodes and audio that will be uploaded there that won't be anywhere else for small bucks. And plus, it really helps us out a lot, and you are contributing to the verbal artwork community, and that really, really, really means a lot. Honestly, it helps with tremendous amount of things for what we're trying to do. You can, when it comes to Raw Wilkes, you can go over to Instagram and follow R Wilkes at raw_Wilkes, WILKES, on Instagram, and we can get things popping for Raw Wilkes over there. So that's the introduction. Without further ado, me and Raw Wilkes are going to get into it. So obviously we saw the first and the second one. We saw the first one by accident, just because we were out and it just happened to be in a position to view the first fight. You know, what you and I remember and know that Fury was dominating Wilder in that fight. I mean, just embarrassing him. And then Wilder had a few moments because of his power where, you know, he touches you and you're out. That's what made the fight a draw, even though Fury, I believe, won 10 out of the 12 rounds. And the 2 rounds that he lost were obviously rounds that he was knocked down. Then the second fight was a complete obliteration, which I put lots of money on that. And lots of people thought I was crazy and didn't understand why I was choosing Fury over Wilder. And after that, people started calling me Mystic Mac of basically predicting the boxing. When it comes to this particular match, which is Wilder versus Fury 3, I definitely, and I don't mean it figuratively, I got my money, of course, on Fury for 3. One thing I could see from the press conference, I'm not sure if you watched or not, is I'm not sure how. Now, Fury himself seems to be doing okay, even though we know he struggles with, you know, like some depression and some like alcohol and some slight drug usage or whatever. But he obviously he really seems to be in a good space when he talks about life, and that he's dealing with his issues and he has help. And so I'm not really worried about him. Honestly, what I am worried about is Wilder I'm kind of worried about Deontay Wilder because, in all honesty, he is not going to. I believe he's going to get knocked out. He's going to get knocked out in this fight, and it didn't really seem like he took the last fight very well. One thing I notice about any game or any situation in life is when it comes to competitive sports or anything competitive, when somebody can't stand the loss, they start making accusations that the other person just cheated. So the fact that Wilder came up with accusations for such a long time that, Fury cheated, and all this, and this Glovegate accusations, for example, is just ridiculous. But honestly, it makes me feel like he's not mentally in a good space. And when you're such on top in a sport like that, for example, and you're just destroying everybody, and then you get in a match with somebody and you just think that you're God. I mean, you got to picture it. We got to picture it from his perspective. Like, imagine being a boxer and you get in the ring and you're knocking everybody out. You're knocking everybody out. You're knocking them out. You're knocking them out. You're destroying people. There is a point where you're just going to start feeling like you're untouchable.
100%.
And then to get in the ring and get destroyed and get embarrassed and get destroyed, and you can't live with the situation to the point where you're saying the person who beat me, they only won because they cheated. You're probably not in a good space. And then in the press conferences, you're not even speaking. He's not speaking in the last one he did because he said, "Oh, I have respect for the female journalists, so I'm gonna speak to you in this one." But the last ones they had, he didn't even talk at all. He just sat there with his headphones, just bobbing his head. Now people are like trying to say like, "Oh, he's motivated." No, he might be motivated. I'm not gonna say he's not, but something is severely bothering him to where he felt like he couldn't even talk. I mean, how do you go to an event, and it might be nothing, but I honestly feel like he's not in a good space. He's not in a good space, and it's almost like, even though he has a good career, it's kind of like, sort of like, if he loses this one and gets knocked out, it's almost like a career ending for him. That's why, honestly, for his mental sake and his career, if I was his coach or his trainer, I would tell him, we don't need this one. Not unless he could honestly tell me, if I lose, I'll be good. It's kind of like the Rocky movie, where the point where Rocky, it's years later, he beat the Russian guy, right? It's years later he beat the Russian guy. Or no, it's years later and he beat Apollo. He beat Apollo and it's years later, and or the movie's so old, it's so long ago. There's a point where he beats Apollo, and then I think he's this guy Cumberland is or Mr. T starts coming up the ranks, knocking everybody out. And at this point, Rocky's famous. He's got big media days. He's not boxing and practicing like he should. He's in a brand new state-of-the-art gym. He's not in the old gym. He's not focusing. And his trainer sees that, and because he thinks he's on top of the world. And his trainer's like, "Listen, we don't need this fight." And he's like, "Yeah, it's just another fighter. He's just another fighter. I'll go in there, I'll destroy him." And he's like, "No, he's not just another fighter. He's a wrecking ball. And he's going to destroy you. And you haven't had that hunger since you got them belts." And it's kind of what I see in this situation. Like, you got so high on the top. It's like this fight here is almost like you don't need this fight. You're you have a great legacy. Continue your legacy. And you don't need this fight, because this fight is just you're up against a match with a guy who's just going to destroy you. He's just going to destroy you. And
like in my opinion, Root. I mean, in my opinion, I think he's just going about it entirely the wrong way. Like mindset wise, I've even heard a quote from Michael Jordan saying, "I hate losing, but I respect losing because losing is part of winning." And basically what that entails is like he's not giving Fury his respect. And with not giving somebody their due respect, you're already out of the game anyway, because it's just it's a mental game now.
Yeah.
It's a mental game. So you're not even going to game in a good state of mind, because that losing is part of winning, because the negative emotions of losing is supposed to make you better, and the work ethic is supposed to increase. That's why you're supposed to have the respect. I mean, to me, just not showing the respect. That's why I think he's going to get slaughtered. He's not going about it the right way. He's not showing that he's in, like you said, in the right state of mind going into the game. Right now, Fury owns the space in his head right now, as Goggins would say.
Yeah.
I own a space in your head.
It's clear.
And that's all. Sports is mental, because you're both talented. No doubt, both of you talented, but that's just how I see it, just from the state of mind. Just, you lost your first loss, which is really, that draw. It should be 2 losses, because that really wasn't a draw. I mean, he got lucky there. Let's not get carried away. That should have never been called a draw.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I know somebody in his corners are saying, because you're when you watch boxing, and you're in one corner, you're very biased to what. It's almost like me and you when we were watching Mayweather fights, and people that hate Mayweather, oh, look at him, he's holding. Meanwhile, the other player he's headbutting, he's doing all types of other illegal stuff, but they don't even notice it, because your mindset's only stuck on what you want to see.
Yes.
As they call it, your reticulating activating system is only focused on what you want to see, and not necessarily what's actually happening.
Yes.
So when you're watching Wilder, all you go is to see the knockdown. So all his fans, that's all they see is the knockdown, not meanwhile he was getting outboxed for 9 rounds.
Right.
So when that happened, that's all you saw, and that's all you talked about for the whole next few weeks, that it was a ripoff, that he didn't win the fight, and he didn't get called a knockout.
No, exactly.
It's almost a little bit troubling when it comes out. But to your point, he probably should have took the fight on. Should have gave it some time, because they didn't know if Fury already fight like 3 times already since their fight. It's like he fought like 2 or 3 times already. I think since after.
No, actually, no. They both. Now there has been like talks. He was supposed to fight Joshua. That didn't happen. He even said he would have fought Mike Tyson. Okay. It didn't happen. Because he wanted that other belt from Antonio Joshua to become undisputed. Because Antonio Joshua had 3 other belts. He has 1.
Okay. And
Joshua had 3. Now Joshua just lost all 3 to Usyk, which is the Lomachenko style cruiserweight who came up to heavy. And now Usyk is in top 5 pound for pound, which he was top 10 before it. And that's another one that I called, that I said Usyk is going to win. I said if Usyk can carry the power.
Been any fights.
No.
Okay.
He's tried, but it didn't happen.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he fought or not. Okay, so if they do fight, it would be the first. But after the first fight, Fury had more fights after that fight, correct? After they fought the first time, and then when they got the draw.
Before they got the rematch.
Before they got the rematch, because I'm confusing that one. Maybe.
I don't actually think so. To be honest, I think this was consecutive.
Just see, because I swear there was.
No. So after the first one, he had 2 more fights.
All right.
Yeah, so
That's
after
why I remember something small. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
we're
after
not some
Fury
big
fought
names,
him the
but
first time, he had two more fights, and then he had this one, and then now this is three with no other fight in between. Yeah.
all right. So that's another thing is he's already that part too. Just preparation and just being active. He has the edge on him too. On top of that,
Yeah, because also
like he's not
Wilder,
thinking about you. He's not thinking about Wilder like that. He's already fought a few others.
and he's not thinking about him like that because also Fury said, I fought that fight the wrong way. I fought that fight the wrong way, and basically I fought that fight with too much respect. And after you did knock me down, this is his words. After you did knock me down, I saw something in you those last few rounds that I didn't see throughout the whole fight, and I saw the cheat code to defeating you. And this second time when we fight, I'm going to show you that cheat code that I saw in those last few rounds. And I figured out the code. And, fighters say stuff like that all the time. Like
Right.
I found the key to you and stuff like that, and they go in and get destroyed. And then to come into the third fight, he actually did, the second fight, he actually did see the missing link to destroying Wilder, and he destroyed him. And I don't see
Yeah, it was bad.
nothing different coming of the third, because Wilder doesn't have an answer for that. He doesn't have an answer for that. I mean, you have almost a 7 foot tall guy, which is crazy tall for a heavyweight
The
boxer.
boxer. Yeah.
And he's coming in at 290 plus, which is ridiculous. And
Yeah.
he's saying, I'm gonna knock you out faster than before. So I think Fury is coming in 30 pounds heavier than he did before. And he's coming in, going to be pumping the jab and spinning off and pivoting off your shots and hitting you with combinations. Wilder has nothing for that. What do you have for
And
that,
Wilder
Wilder?
weighs how much? What is he, like 230, 6'5"? Because I remember the last time they said that when he got his ass whooped the last time, he was like only like 220 from what I remember. Like they were like, "Yo, Wilder's like lighter." He was lighter coming in, which was weird because you're fighting a bigger guy. You would think you're gonna put more weight on, not less. If I remember that correctly, I remember him only being like between 220 and 230.
Yeah, because more isn't always better, right? Because
But he lost the weight.
if we look at Joshua was like 20-something pounds heavier than Usyk. And Usyk is, kind of small. Usyk's used to fighting at cruiserweight. But the weight didn't seem to bother Usyk at all because he had movement. And the movement just mentally drained Joshua because Joshua's used to fighting forward and backward. So I'm used to fighting forward and backward, and then you got this guy going from left to right, forward, backward, up to down, and coming at angles. Mentally, I'm tired. Forget about being physically tired. Mentally, I'm tired, and that strains on the body. So now I have to do all this thinking, and I can't even, I'm trying to hit you with shots, and I'm just, what the fuck, what the hell is he, and I'm thinking, now I'm tired from just all of that. Because remember a lot of the calories that you burn within a day, 20 to 40% of it is the calories you burn in a day is your brain power. So I don't believe it's any different within a highly active competition or situation. I believe your brain is burning just as many calories as your body is when you're doing such an activity. And that's why you practice and get muscle memory, so your brain can get into a heuristic behavior, so that you are conserving the amount of energy you're using. So things just become fluid, both muscle memory and mental memory. That's why you practice.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so as far as the last fight on the weigh-in, yeah, Wilder was 230.
Yeah.
Deontay Wilder, so he's 6'7", 230. And which is probably a very, very lean 230, 6'7". That's where that power comes from. It's long, lean. And Fury was 273. So now he's going to be coming in at about a little over 290, closer to 300 pounds. So he put on over 20-something pounds for this fight. So you're talking about Fury, who's about, they got him at 6'10", but I think he's taller than that. I think he's like 6'11", 7, because he's a lot taller than Wilder. And then he's going to be 60 plus pounds heavier. So not only is Fury taller, he's heavier, and he moves better. What do you have? You don't have any immutable characteristics that are better than Fury. You don't have any immutable attributes that are better than Fury. And then you don't even have any, you don't have any non-immutable characteristics, and you don't have any immutable characteristics because he moves better than you do. His footwork is better. His pivot is better. His boxing IQ is better. His height is taller. His weight is taller. And he seems to be faster because he moves better. What do you have? The only thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to land that shot.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to get it off.
But that's not boxing, really, if that's the case. If that's your only ticket to winning, it's hard to say. When it comes to his matchmaker, his being Fury, that his match, it's actually embarrassing what you said. A lighter fighter, obviously, with the other boxer,
like Usyk and Joshua.
Yeah, you said the weight doesn't matter because of the fact of movement. Well, now hearing that, it's actually embarrassing that Wilder is lighter and yet can't move better than a 290. So the whole point of being lighter is supposed to be to your advantage, but yet it's not, because you can't move your feet. You have no footwork. So what's the point of being lighter then? So what's the point of being light? Well, for him, what's the point of being lighter? He's better off being heavier, so he can throw that haymaker.
Yeah, because
that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta have, even McGregor has talked about, in a fight you need some type of attributes, that gives you an advantage against your opponent. You're gonna need some type of attributes that give you an advantage. If you want any chance of winning, and he doesn't have that. So I put a pretty penny on this fight, and I'm letting putting it out there, letting everybody know I put a pretty penny on this fight. It's gonna be Money in the Bank.
You want to tell people real quick which site you used for the bets, for the people out there that might be interested?
I don't know if I do. I do, but I don't know if I do, because I don't want to give away freebies. People are not sponsoring us. People are not giving us butter right now. So I don't kind of want to give anybody any credit or any platforms any credit until they start paying us some chicken. Showbiz the adult always throws out BUSR, but they're giving him perks. They're sending him T-shirts. They're sending him signed gloves. They're sending him merch. So he shouts them out. And they're a betting site. He shouts them out. I'm not affiliated with them, so I'm not shouting out any particular services that I'm using to make bets right now, because they're not throwing me any freebies. They're not giving me any legs up. So I'm not shouting out anything for any brands till they start looking out. I mean, that's how I feel about it. But
say less.
Yeah, I'm not going to say an amount, but when I post this video on Instagram, I might type in the amount in the description, but I'm not going to say the amount right now, but it's probably, it might be 4 figures. We'll see. But switching directions, we're going to switch directions right now. And I hate talking about this guy. You know, I really do, but we just have to. It is what it is. We have to. I hate talking about him, but we got to. We got to talk about him because it's just so bad. But I don't know if you saw, but apparently good old Grandpa Biden wants to, he has plans of having a $3.5 trillion economic spending plan that they're trying to go through right now. $3.5 trillion economic spending plan. The only thing that this could remind me of, who does this remind you of? A president that has done this most ridiculous spending?
Obama.
Yes. Obama. Okay, when we talk about spending, yes. 100% Obama.
Yeah,
Obama, he doubled the deficit. Yeah, he doubled the deficit. Yeah. So no, I agree. No president has done any crap like that.
Most
recent. Right. Yeah. Right. No. So yes, but he doubled it for many different reasons. But what other president like had a ridiculous multi-trillion-dollar spending plan that was disastrous for some social programs? Like what president comes to mind? I mean, there could be like a couple of them, really.
Oh, Clinton.
The Clintons would have liked to spend more if they could. That's for damn sure. Especially the way Hillary is now. She's pretty progressive now. She would have loved to get in there and spend. But to me, it's similar to that of like Lyndon B. Johnson. I mean, he's trying to use this.
That's not. That's a good one. I mean, that definitely wasn't something on my top list. I didn't even think about that one.
Yeah, because they're trying to create this multi-trillion-dollar plan to use towards spending for basically incredible social programs. And Lyndon B. Johnson, started all these different programs that were very progressive in giving social benefits to our country, like the welfare state, unemployment, other social benefits, providing. I mean, he was most pivotal in influential in the welfare state. I want to say he expanded Social Security, but definitely he was pivotal into unemployment as well, and spent trillions and trillions of dollars on that initiative to move that particular plan. Also, another big spender, obviously, was a terrible, terrible president, is Jimmy Carter. I mean, Biden's always getting compared to Carter because Carter had ridiculous foreign affair policies that he enacted, and he was one of the top presidents of causing the worst amount of inflation. So to dumb it down, it's not surprising that one thing that I definitely see from the left and the right is the right tries to embetter and to do beneficial things with ideas and being smart. And the left tries to tackle ideas and helping society by just throwing money around. I mean, they think that the solution to everything is like taking money from the people who have quote unquote too much or who are too rich and giving it to people who are at the bottom, and that's the best way to do everything. That's just what all of their plans are surrounded by.
So let's talk about that right there. So in your opinion, how does investing into social problems as a president is putting all that money actually benefits with long-term outcome? How does it benefit. And in my opinion, it's almost like being the casino, to where the people that you're trying to help socially with the social programs are the person gambling. It's the person gambling where the house always wins, but you're always losing. You're the gambler that always loses. So it's like the government's the big casino that's investing all this money into the social problems. But I look at the social people that you're dealing with, the social problems or the social issues you're trying to fix, are basically people that just gamble. It's a lose-lose. There's no win for the people overall, long term.
No,
That's
it's
how
true.
I look at it. I'm over long term. Maybe you help a few there, but overall, you can't help the few. You're supposed to help the many.
Yes, you're supposed to help the many. And see, they're hyper focused on the few. That is correct. It's hard to actually try to figure out what perspective or ideology these type of people are coming from. They really have to come from a perspective that people with money and people at the top are they're somehow, if you look at life as a game, it's like they're saying that the game of life is only geared towards specific groups of people, and other groups of people life is completely unfair for. And it's a zero-sum game. And the only way to counteract the zero-sum game is to make it harder for the people at the top and have cosmic justice policies, like Thomas Sowell would say, cosmic justice policies that are geared towards the bottom. So for those who don't understand, a cosmic justice, as Thomas Sowell would point out, is plans that basically make it easier for people at the bottom, but they're plans that would make it harder for everyone else. So that type of ideology is what would be considered iatrogenic. And that's policies that all Democrats, in my point of view, policies that they engage in. They engage in ideas that are trying to help something that already works, and they wind up causing more damage than whatever small amount of damage that naturally was already pre-occurring. Because people are not perfect, there's no idea or plan that would be ultimately 100% perfect. But if something is 95 or 90% working, or even 80, 70% working, to completely scrap it for something else that statistically we can prove will do more harm than good, but appears to be more noble and more sensitive, quote unquote, to the needs of the individuals who are not doing well in that group, somehow makes the idea good. And I just don't understand that. I don't understand that perspective. It has to be a perspective like, for example, if we have a group of 10 people and we all witness somebody, for example, getting murdered in front of our eyes. And seven out of the 10 people are shocked. Everybody's shocked. But 7 out of the 3 people, all the emotion that you see is they're shocked. And then 3 out of the 10 people need therapy after witnessing this event. It's almost like they're saying that the 3 people who need therapy after witnessing the event are the people who witness something else that was basically not there. If I'm making sense, because everybody witnessed the murder. The fact that those 3 people need therapy because of what they witnessed is not due to the fact that what everybody witnessed wasn't bad. Everybody witnessed something incredibly bad. So the 7 people who are doing better than the 3 people, you don't set something up to penalize them that now they need to, for example, take 10% of their money every month and give it to the 3 people who were completely affected. We all were affected by that. It's just we don't need therapy. So now why do I have to owe 10% of my money to help you? Yes, that's sad that you have therapy after it and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But why am I penalized? I went through the same thing you went through. I witnessed the same thing you went through. I'm hurt, just like you are. But I just don't need therapy, it just doesn't affect me the way you are. Now that could be perspective. It could be different behavioral aspects that have occurred in my life, different from yours. But again, it's not a situation of zero sum. So why am I saying all that? I'm saying all that because life is hard for everybody. And the fact that one individual makes it to the top doesn't mean they got there unfairly or that you should penalize them because of it.
No, absolutely not.
But that has to be the perspective of Democrats. Their ideas are predicated on that to a particular extent. It's got to be predicated on that. Because you're hyper-focused on the 1 to 5 to 10% of people at the bottom, and you are believing in policies that hurt the 90% in order to do something for the 1 to 10% of people who are just not able to get on board. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be social benefits or social plans. Like even Shapiro has said,
you got kids.
Like even Shapiro said, in our country, we spend billions and a lot of money on social programs that is equivalent to that of even the most socialist type countries in society. But at the end of the day, there has to be a point where you have to understand that we are not God. And in actuality, this might sound brutal, you cannot cure poverty. Because what you're saying is we have to cure human nature. And that's something that we're incapable of doing. There are individuals, for example, who are homeless. It's like 80 to 90% of them have either a mental disorder, illness, and or drug addiction. It's like 80 to 90% of them. Drug addiction and or mental illness. It's like 80 to 90% of them. So you think you're just going to throw money at this and cure it? Think again. On top of that, you look at poverty. Some of the same similar elements are evident in people who are in poverty. Mental illness, mental disorder, systemic dysfunctional families, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, physical, mental abuse. There are elements and problems within there that are completely systemic, that are not as a result of systemic governmental plans. The government is doing tremendous amounts of effort and or spending at things, throwing money at things, wasting money at things to try to fix this problem. But now we just need to be more progressive and have a more progressive society that spends more money and puts more focus at these different things, in which the 90% of people who are on the upper half of society are the problem. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. It's a lazy way of trying to fix things. You can't just try to throw money at things in order to fix it. You need good ideas.
You add all that you just said with the mental illness, the drug addiction, the people that are essentially at the bottom that they try to benefit and throw money at. You give them the freedom of choice on top of that. On top of all that, you give them the freedom of choice, you're going to have poverty. Because being, like Bill Gates says, being born into poverty is not your fault. But dying poor is 100% your fault, especially when you live in a capitalist society. So you add that into it, it's like, yeah, we can't fix poverty, but it's also a choice. Because you could have these issues, but you still choose. It's not like you're forced. No one's forcing people to be homeless. No one's forcing people to stay in poverty their whole life. No one's forcing anybody to be homeless their whole life and anything like that. And you have the resources to help the rehabs and all that, which we spend on our tax dollars, depending on how bad you are. There's resources that give a lot of these people opportunities to correct their addictions and get the help. The churches that don't pay taxes, and all these stuff that we already have in place. We already have this stuff in place. Our country tends to not allow people, if they want the help, to not get it. So
Yes.
again, it's choice. I look at choice. So when you look at choice, how can we can't just accept the fact that some people just choose to be bums and just take resources and not really add to society, and they just take? Because we look at all these programs, all these people just take. It's not even good economics, which is basically a person that or entity that basically produces transfers or consumes wealth. So if I'm always throwing resources out and all you're doing is consuming them, it's not a very good economic plan if you're going to spend the most money to the people that don't even kick any of it back. It's the worst. It's bad economics. You should only help, technically you should be helping the people that are productive in the middle class and upper, truly, to really technically think about it, because you'll actually stimulate more money out of that pocket and up from a concept of that might actually make the bottom better versus just giving it to the bottom that basically doesn't have the mental capacity. They can't. I mean, why would you want to give the money at the worst people in society? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Dump the most money to the people at the bottom that have all the illnesses, have all the dysfunctional families, have all the, the sickness, the health issues, and then you're going to dump the most money to them. It doesn't make sense.
and think it's going to solve everything.
You want to help them. It's not going to solve anything because these people have more issues than just money. It's not even a money thing that can fix that.
It's not a money thing.
A lot of this stuff is systemic issues, because we all get the same education, arguably, because, depending on what area you're in, but we all go from first grade to 12th. It's legal. Legally, you have to go to school. And that's something that we as Americans pay into for everybody to get a standard education. What you do after that, that's on you. But you still was able to learn enough to be able to get a decent job. Because all school does is prepare you for you to be a productive citizen, essentially.
No,
being on a schedule, listening to a teacher, following order, rules, direction. All that stuff is behaviors that basically make you a better employee. When you look at it, take all the knowledge out of it, but just the 12 years of schooling. So there's no reason for you to be out here and just be a non-productive citizen.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. It really is sad. I mean, we just named a few. I mean, but there's other aspects. Like I said, dysfunctional families. What about families that have family members that just are just career criminals? I mean, they're just in and out of jail. I mean, their uncle's in jail, the father's in jail, the son in jail. I mean, look at the story, for example, of Jay Morrison. Now, he broke the systemic cycle of his family, but his mother I think his mother did drugs. His father taught him how to cook up. Maybe his grandfather even sold drugs. So, I mean, how do you get out of that? You just throw money at that? No. There has to be a systemic mental and motivated break to have a desire for one of the individuals to snatch through the curve. Really, the people and or things that could help those particular type of situations, for example, is, I say, like influence, motivational speakers, books, desire. Again, like Andrew Huberman talks about, in order to change a habit, you have to create a habit that breaks a habit to become a habit. And that has to do with changing your plasticity. So none of that can be done with money. None of that can be done with money. I mean, like, for example, the work that I'm involved in, for example, I work alongside different individuals, and they have told me different stories, for example, in which they, for example, dealt with some individuals who are institutionalized. And one of these individuals, for example, goes in and out of a mental what do you even call it? Basically a temporary detention home, because their behavior is problematic within society, and they are classified in an area where jail won't do any benefit from them, because their behavior that they're having seems to be an imbalancement of physiological problems, of chemical imbalancement. So it's not typically behavioral to where they should just be in jail for their bad behavior, but they're doing problems and being in jail because of mental illness and being legally classified as retardation. So they typically get into mental facilities for their bad behavior. And this particular individual that I'm referring to, from the information that I was told, it's this individual was telling me that, and it's kind of hard to believe. One, they said they just like, and it's not funny, because one thing he said that they enjoy the person because they like to sing songs all the time, and the songs are cool and it keeps the person calm, and they make a lot of jokes, and they're actually kind of pretty funny. And I was going to name one of the jokes that they said, but it's probably not appropriate. But and that's the funny good things that this person have. You know, people with illnesses, they're actually good people. They got good hearts. But there was one person, the bad part about it is, this particular kid, like, and he knows he has issues because he's always in trouble, but in order to deal with his problem, he does things where he like bangs his head against the wall. He bangs his head against the wall all the time, to where he has like a crazy scar on his head, and his head even looks like kind of deformed because he just slams his head against the wall so hard. I mean, seriously. And it's like, it's like shocking. And this kid even says, like, you know, I just want to stay in the detention home because nobody knows what to do with me. And see, and that's the sad part, because his family doesn't know what to do with him but take his money, and that he gets from the government, because the government obviously is giving him money because he's classified as mentally retarded. And his family lets him wander around unsupervised, which he shouldn't. And he does things that harm himself. Again, like he can't, when he really acts out, he slams his head against the wall ridiculously, to where he has like a crazy scar down the middle of his head permanently. And he doesn't stop, and he does it all the time. And it just gets crazier and crazier. And he's like, I just want to live in a home. I just want to live in a home. So the question was, the conversation I was having with this person, what do you do with them? That person even knows nobody can do anything with them. That person knows his head is deformed because he slams his head against the wall, and he can't stop.
And just think about how much resources one person is costing society.
Yes.
Doctors, nurses, mental facilities.
Yes, it's unlimited.
Constant attention. Well, that's one person costing those much salaries, that much man hours.
And think about it.
For nothing productive.
And think about it. The way we're going to solve this problem is the fact that, okay, Bill Gates has 10 houses. We're going to take 2 houses from him now. That's how we're going to solve it. No, that's not going to solve anything. That's not going to solve anything.
Just puts a roof over his head, but ain't solving anything.
Money and putting a roof over that kid's head is not enough. He's getting fed.
He needs attention.
He has roof over his head, and he's getting fed. That's not going to stop him from slamming his head against the wall. It's not going to stop him.
It'll just be a more expensive wall. That's all. That's all it is.
That's all it is.
When you look at people at the bottom, this is my perspective. Human nature is to basically the least path of resistance, like water going down a hill or something. It takes the least path of resistance. And if you give humans the opportunity to be able to exercise that, people do it all day long. If I know I can take the least path of resistance, get a roof over my head, and be fed, and not have to worry about actually doing the up the grain and actually going up river or upwind into something that might be a little bit more difficult, but there's more promise at the end of the top of the mountain, and there might be more promise swimming upstream. But the thing is, these are only the select few people that are willing to take that type of work, that type of risk, you would say, because you don't know the outcomes, even though statistically showing people that do work harder tend to have better outcomes. But most people, they're given the opportunity to take the lift. That's why think about it. We're a fatter nation. We're a lazier nation. People don't really want to work as hard. And this shows, and we're enabling. So the point I'm trying to make is we're enabling bad behavior. And when you keep dumping more money at the bottom and keep doing more social programs, which are good, because there are people that have autism and stuff like that and things that we just mentioned. They're good. But we're talking about the average healthy adult that just chooses to be lazy and live off social welfare.
Right.
Those are the people that I'm trying to target, because those are the people that are capable of working. Because I see it all the time. I see people in areas that just sit outside. They live with their auntie, uncle. They don't have a real job, and they're young, mid-20s.
Yeah.
And they just don't want to do anything because they enabling. So why would I want to dump more resources to that person? Anybody listening to this, if you had resources, why would you want to dump more resources to a person that's willing to take the lazy path of resistance, which is basically, you give it to me, I'll take it, but I'm not going to give you anything back because I don't have to. It's like they say, they say you don't teach a man, you don't give a man a fish, you teach him how to fish. Because if you give him a fish, you just enabled him to just keep feeding him. I mean, we all know the old sayings, and the old sayings have basically utility.
Yes.
To it, and what we're doing to people, what we're doing, I think we're actually, you can almost argue what we're doing to the social welfare. We can almost say it's criminal what we're doing to these people mentally. We can flip it. You're not helping. It's criminal what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you're actually perpetuating a problem that's continuous, long term. How about we look at it that way instead of looking at it, oh, I'm just trying to help. How about you look at it, you're not helping? You ever look at it that way?
No, they
Section
don't.
8's not helping. Projects are the most violent part in any city is the projects. And if I'm wrong, please correct me, because the crime is in the projects. And probably any city, any metro, is you go to the worst crime, let's go look at their projects. Government
funded.
housing.
Government funded.
So how is that helping problems if that's the statistics? Because remember, statistics tell us what's happening around the world. Not what we believe is what is happening. Not what we think is happening. So it's like, that's my concept, is like, well, government is so good. Why is it some of the worst things the government put their hands on is some of the worst outcomes?
Yeah. No, it's extremely apparent.
That's just fine. And you want to dump more money into social programs? I mean, humans are humans, man. We definitely, it's our problem. It's not their fault. It's not their fault if you're born into a system like that, to where the government's just not going to let you fail.
Right. Right.
Where are they doing the homeless problem in San Francisco and Los Angeles now?
And that's another thing. That is another thing, right? So Larry Elder didn't win. Well, first of all, he would have won, but the fact that they voted against the recall. So if they would have voted yes to have Newsom out, Larry Elder would have been in, because Larry Elder was leading. But the problem is 65% of the people voted yes to keep Newsom. How? And again, it's like one of those situations where I remember watching an episode, for example, of what's the TV show? That's the old TV show. And I remember seeing this as a kid. Forgot, like my grandfather was watching it. It's the Jeffersons, where they lived in a skyscraper, and he owned a janitor company. The Jeffersons. So he had a friend which was a white guy, and he was married to, his wife was black. And there was a scene in the Jeffersons, for example, where there was like a Ku Klux Klan meetings happening in the building, or some building nearby, or of some nature. And they were having Klan meetings. Long story short, one of the sons of the Klan members it's a white family, was going to the meetings. And, and Jefferson's friend was going to the meeting, but he's not a Klan member. He was going to the meeting for a mistake reason. He thought he was invited and he didn't know what this meeting was about. And when he got there, he saw it was a Klan meeting. He was like, this is terrible. What is this? My wife is black. I can't be involved in this. What kind of crap is this? Right? Long story short, the guy who organized the Klan meeting, for example, was obviously teaching his kid to be this toxic way of racism, right? And obviously we know kids are not naturally racist or prejudiced. They have to be taught. So long story short, in the show, the guy who organized the Klan meeting or whatever starts having a heart attack. So the white friend of one of the Jeffersons was invited to that meeting, not knowing it was a white Klan meeting. So during the argument of what was going on, the guy who was the head of the Klan meeting starts having a heart attack. So then the black guy gives him CPR, saves his life. And then ambulance comes in, picks him up, takes him out, and they saves his life, and he's alive. So the kid of the father who was organizing the Klan meeting told the black guy, "Thanks, you saved my dad's life." So all the racism out of the kid just went out the window. You saved my dad's life. I don't care about no black or black or white stuff right now. You saved my dad's life. But the Klan guy looked at his son and because the son told him, "This black guy just saved your life, Dad." And the white guy told his son, "You should have just let me die than to have me saved by a black person." So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is some people, even if it kills them, do not want change. And they don't want change to the other side. So that's exactly what I saw when it came to what happened in California. Is we know Larry Elder is going to be in if we vote yes for the recall. So we're going to vote no for the recall so Newsom stays in. Because we rather have somebody who's absolutely positively terrible, who's causing complete problems to this state, than to have some guy on the other side. We rather die than have some guy on the other side. Too much pride. Oh yeah, I mean that's the way it is when it comes to them, and really when it comes to a lot of progressive politics now, it's we're swinging swords, and we'll live and die by the sword. We're than to do better, and it's a sad state of affairs. It's a sad state of affairs. I'm not gonna vote for a terrible Republican over an excellent Democrat. I'm not gonna vote for a terrible Democrat over an excellent Republican. I'm gonna vote for the best man or woman. So it's not gonna be of that to me. Kidding me? But it's the state of the affairs that we're in. So like I said, Biden he has this economic deal that he's trying to do, where he's trying to spend $3.5 trillion in economic plan, and it's looking terrible. Moving another direction, you got something you want to hit, or
if it was this is not the because this is your, are we still doing BMF, the business money finance, or is that the other one?
Right now, we are commingling everything on here until I get big enough to separate the two. But yeah, we're definitely
yeah. I think if there was anything just from that standpoint, I think I just wanted to hit a little bit between the both of us, just a little bit, a topic, just hitting just budgeting, just something I was thinking about the other day when I was talking to my little sister about, when it comes down to how important budgeting is in your adult life when you become independent. And we started talking. I said, isn't it funny, from kindergarten to basically 12th grade, or you can even include preschool, that's 14 years of schooling. In those 14 years of schooling, you learn nothing about finances. And yet, from the average age of 18, 17, graduating high school, to the average age of death, which is like high 70s now, like 78, though between those years, you're going to be dealing with money, until you die. And yet, we don't know the budgeting. So I said, when you go to school, you have a teacher. And this is what I was talking about, like you have to have a mentor and a coach. And my whole point, I really want to tie this all together, but when it comes down to anything, you have to have a mentor and coach. So obviously, when you're going to school, you have a teacher that teaches you whatever, that's your mentor. But when it comes to budgeting, you have to find a mentor and a coach, because nothing gets done without having a mentor. Like, for instance, if you're a basketball player, you have a coach. If you're a boxer, you have a trainer. If you're a golfer, you have a caddy. You know what I'm saying? No matter how you break that down, you have somebody that's giving you mentorship, because you wouldn't just grab somebody off the street and just throw him in the game and wing it and say, go ahead and wing it. No, he'll get coached up to learn the fundamentals. So to tie this all in, I want to talk about budgeting in the fundamentals, because you can't do anything without having a coach or a mentor or a teacher to give you the fundamentals of something. So just something to think about in anything. I'm going to talk about budgeting, but just in anything, I would just want to mention, if there's anything you want to learn, find the mentor in that area and then let them teach you the fundamentals, because you can't master anything unless you have the fundamentals. You wouldn't just get thrown in a boxing ring without going through a trainer. You wouldn't just golf without having somebody to catch. You wouldn't go through anything, musician, artist, anything, without having somebody to teach you the basics first, because you would look foolish, against your, look foolish against your competitors. So, but budgeting, if I would start with one thing, because it's necessary to budget. It's funny because most people know what they make. If you went to an average person on the street and said, hey, how much do you make per hour? Oh, I make 12 an hour, 15 an hour, whatever. What do you make per year? I know what my salary is. But if you ask the average person what they spend per month, almost 100% will have no clue what they spend per month. And that, my friends, is where the problem lies when it comes to budgeting, is people know what they make, but people have no clue what they spend. And to budget, you almost have to know, you definitely need to know how much you make, because that's the basis of your budgeting. So number one would be know what you make per month and know what you spend per month. That would be know what you make per month, so you can actually work backwards. So once you know what you make per month, that's your baseline, that's your starting number. Then you need to work backwards and then actually figure out what you spend per month. Because if you don't know what you spend per month, budgeting is actually pointless, because you have to have an idea of what you spend per month. So the reason why I was thinking that, it's like, if you would look at a company and they said, we'll say Rembrandt, if you were running a company, we would want to see your finances, and we want to see your budgeting, and we want to see how you manage your company. But then I'll go, no, I don't want to see how you manage your company. I want to see how you manage yourself. So whatever your last name is, Mr. Rembrandt, I want to see how you manage yourself. So look at yourself as the CEO of your last name. People always want to talk about getting into business, but look at the CEO of your last name. Why worry about getting into business if you can't even manage yourself? So if I would look at your finances and look at it as a person to grade your behavior in budgeting, would you be somebody that you would want to hire yourself? Would you want to hire yourself? So if you look at budgeting from a standpoint as you're a CEO, everybody's a CEO of their own last name, because you are your own person. So if you look at it from that perspective, you should be able to try to go about it as before you start trying to make money and try to run a business or start a business, or all these plans and all these endeavors of trying to do big business, how about you just start with yourself and be the CEO of yourself? And the way I look at budgeting is it takes time, but you got to track everything and you got to get categories. So there's this thing called the 50-30-20 rule. Well, 50% of your budget goes to living expenses and things that are needs, like shelter, food, clothing. 50% of your things goes to essentials that are must-haves. Then 30% goes to basically things of like non-essentials that might be like cell phones, cell phone, internet, other things that are kind of essential, but they're not really. So the 50-30-20 rule is a budgeting fundamental where 50% of your budget is for needs, 30% are for your wants, and then 20% is for like savings and paying off debt and building emergency funds and things of that nature. So what are needs? And this is where people have to actually distinguish the difference between a need and a want. So a need is something that has to do with survival, essentials. So number one would be shelter. When it comes to shelter, that's a home, rent, mortgage, anything to do with a roof over your head. Now, when you think about a shelter, what actually makes a shelter work and to make it useful would be utilities. So after shelter, you actually get the house or the apartment. Then you have to think about utilities, which would mean to make it run, you need electric and water. Electric water, which then gives you heat and cooling, and then water, which is basically showering, toilet, things of that nature. So then your water bill, your electric bill, your rent, your mortgage, these are all essentials. So these are all your needs. And then obviously clothing would be on there. So then that's your clothing. So that should be your budget right there. Clothing, utilities, and shelter. It's basically all 50% of your income should be to that. Now the next 30% should be wants. Wants are considered things like, well, Netflix, that's a want. Anything to do with gym membership, that's a want. So entertainment, eating out, buying games, things to do with stuff that's not necessarily to your day-to-day needs. It's or after you buy one pair of shoes or two, you might want a third pair of shoes. That's a want. That's not a need. So then you have to distinguish between wants and needs. And then when you get to 20%, that last 20%, that's where you have to basically use that to save up your emergency fund, which is you should have 3 to 6 months, minimum 3 to 6 months. And most people in America, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rembrandt, that most people basically don't even have enough money saved up after they miss 1 week's worth of paycheck, that they can't even basically live off their savings for 1 month. Most people can't even live off, if they basically quit their job, they wouldn't be able to have enough money to sustain their same living style for a month. And with that being said, that's why most people live paycheck to paycheck. So like I tell my family members is when it comes to that 50-30-20 rule, you shouldn't even do the 30%, which is your wants. You shouldn't do your wants until you get your 30% to 20%. That whole other 50% should just go straight to emergency savings. Because if you can't sacrifice to be able to get your emergency funds up, this is why you'll never get to anything. You'll never be in control of your money anyway. And all budgeting is knowing where your money's going and not wondering where it went. That is all budgeting is. And that actually comes from the book of David Ramsey, which I'm not really a big fan of, but when it comes to budgeting, he's the master of budgeting. So knowing where your money, budgeting is nothing. Let me repeat that again. Budgeting is knowing where your money goes and not wondering where it went. So you're in control of your money. And for people that do budget, it's a stress reliever to know exactly where your money went and not knowing where it might be, and if I'm going to have enough to pay rent, or am I going to have enough to put my light bills on? Well, if you had a budget and you were living within that budget, all these things would just be automated. It wouldn't even be something you would have to worry about. So Just remember that 50-30-20 rules. And if you want something, you got to sacrifice. And I always tell people, you shouldn't even worry about your wants until you have your savings and emergency fund established, which is 3 to 6 months, preferably 6 months, but 3 minimum of emergency savings. And what I mean by emergency savings is like, let's say, for instance, just to give you an example, if you find out that you live off $3,000 a month between all your needs, wants, and savings, then that emergency savings needs to encompass $9,000 because it's 3,000 times 3 months is basically your emergency savings is supposed to be the amount that you basically spend per month in totality, not just your shelter. It's everything. So when I say emergency savings, we're talking about you being able to have the exact same style of living without any change. If you ever were to lose your job, get sick, ill, whatever the case may be, or maybe something unforeseen incident happened to where you might have to shell out some money. All this stuff is basically you preparing for the future. And that's all budgeting is. And again, if I was trying to hire somebody that wants to be my business partner, the first thing I'm going to ask them, let me see your finances and see how you budget. Because if you can't manage yourself, I don't want to work with you. That's just my opinion. I swear I would be able to filter a lot of people. Because if you can't budget, why would I want to do business with you? If we're going to do business and do financial transactions together, I don't want to do business with somebody that can't even manage themselves, then again, manage a company. So that's all I got to say on that. If you got anything to add on that, it's just something I wanted to hit, as far as something that.
No, beautiful. I mean, and obviously when it comes to budgeting, it is the essentials of life. I mean, you talked about the essential aspects of when making an income, the aspects that are important of budgeting. You broke it down to essentials, needs, and then saving and investing. And budgeting itself, when it comes to the importance, is a need. If we break, well, where does budgeting stacked in your life? Is it a need? Is it a want? Or is it something to help you get ahead? It's all of those. Budgeting is a need, and it's a want because it will allow you to get things that you want, and it will allow you to have savings and investing for your future and or business and or anything. So not only is it essential for, not only do you break budgeting up into threes, that are from a weighted scale of importance, budgeting amongst your life is essential in all three of those pillars. If you want to have an essential safety net in life, you have to budget. If you want to have wants that you obtain in your life, you have to budget. And if you want to get ahead where you have tremendous amount of savings and or investment money to get ahead and do different things, you have to budget. So as you know, and that's extremely valuable information that you're providing to the people right now, and I know that budgeting has allowed us to do exceptional amount of things. Budgeting allows you to go on trips. Budgeting allows you to start a business. Budgeting allows you to protect yourself from life. Budgeting gives you FU money. What is FU money? For the sake of this podcast, we'll use FU money and call it freedom money. But the ability to get your FU money will allow you to separate yourself from poverty. See, we talk about essential things that we talked about earlier, getting away from poverty. Most people who are not in the different categories that we named earlier that are unchangeable when it comes to poverty. If you are a healthy person with no mental illnesses and or disease, or very, very, very manageable mental issues, which maybe a lot people have from a normal basis that are very manageable, and or no physical elements or physical elements that are very manageable, and you can get up and work a job, you should be able to budget. And budget allows you to reach exceptional pathways in life that you will never, ever obtain otherwise. You want to start a business, you need a budget. You want to go on a trip, you want to have all these beautiful things, you want to have a nice car, you want to have a boat, you want to have a big house, you need a budget. If you just want to stay above water, you need a budget. Without budgeting, you are one check, one step away from poverty. You have no FU money. What is FU money? Again, for the sake of the podcast, for the sake of this conversation, the sake of the ratings, is freedom money. But you have to separate yourself from poverty. This was said by Bob Proctor, Brian Tracy. Get yourself, mainly Brian Tracy, I'm remembering now. Get yourself some FU money. Freedom money.
And I was just thinking, too, to add, is most average people already budget anyway when it comes for things they want. When it comes to, I really want that those new pair of Jordans, or I really want that PlayStation 4 that just came out, or I really want to go on this cruise. People are already actually doing it. We're talking about doing it for stuff that you don't want when it comes down to just essentials for just long-term prosperity. Because most people already do it. Think about it. Even when you were a kid, you saved up your birthday money for something that you really wanted. That was a form of budgeting. And when you really think about it, people do budget all the time. It's just that they budget for stuff they really want, and it actually hinders them from stuff that they actually should have done first, which were their needs. There's no reason for you to because anytime people really want to get something, they get it. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Just the average person do get what they want for the most part when it comes down to putting their mind to one goal and not the entire collective.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That's excellent advice. So everybody definitely needs to engage in budgeting. That is the first step. And then when you engage in budgeting, you can figure out more exceptional ways to do different things that financially help you, like invest. What do I do with that savings? You got to get the savings first. Then you can start investing. You can start Think and Grow Rich. You can start Richard Kowalski. Excuse me, not Richard Kowalski. You could start Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. You can start investing in property, real estate, different things. Start a business. You can start all these things. So it is one of the pillars of life, budgeting. So I will say, and you'll understand why, but we're going to conclude this episode of Verbal Artwork with Mr. Rembrandt. Remember, go over to patreon.com/verbalartwork to become a subscriber to get the episodes and or content that is not available on the public feed, and or you can download this particular episode on Spotify and or iTunes or any other place that you get your podcasts. Also, don't forget to go over to Instagram and follow me, go over to Twitter and follow me. Link is in the description, and go over and follow Mr. Raw Wilkes on Instagram. Don't forget to do that, and make sure you stay tuned to Mr. Rembrandt on YouTube and the Verbal Artwork with Mr. Rembrandt podcast on anywhere podcast is available. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you guys on the next episode. You got anything to say, R. Wilkes?
No, it was always a pleasure having a great conversation. Look forward to the next one.